Hello, listeners of the future. Welcome back, rollers and friends, to another episode of Classin' Up the Joint, the part of the show where we ask very interesting people inane questions. I'm working my way through the alphabet. I think I got up to I, and I'm feeling good about it. My name is Colin. I am your debatably friendly host and DM. I use they and he pronouns, and as per usual, I am joined in the studio, in our respective studios, by a fantastic, wonderful guest. John R.L. McNabb is, among other things, a creator, a writer, I was looking up the title to see if I have it. I'm going to say president and CEO of McNabb Games, because we love titles around here. Am I right in that?
Absolutely. A million hats.
Yes! Wearer of a million hats. And among the things we are going to talk about today, one of the creators and leads for the Morgalad 4D6 TTRPG. John, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
We are excited to have you. I always love talking about things that are not D&D, because that's the thing that I know about, and there's so much more. There is a wealth, a plethora, a cheese board, if you will, of other games. So I am really excited to get to that. But the first thing that I want to ask you a little bit about is kind of your, I need to think of a better portmanteau word for this. The super heroic origin story of John McNabb. How did you get started in RPGs? Was there a game that you picked up at an early age that has stayed with you the whole time? Came to it during COVID, as many of us seem to, or where and when did the games grab you?
It's kind of a bittersweet song with me. Whenever I was a young child growing up during the satanic panic of the 80s and 90s down here in the deep South, I had a young friend who came to my house one day, and he was like, "Oh, you've got to try this out. This, it's like unlike any other type of board game we've ever played." And he had just got his hands, I think they had just made the transition from Advanced Dungeons & Dragons to Dungeons & Dragons 3rd Edition. They had just released the new box set. And we played it, and it was just instant hook immediately. There was no getting away from it. The problem is, growing up in that environment and that culture, we couldn't openly play any type of game that had the Dungeons & Dragons iconography on it. And so as a group, we all collectively started developing and devising our own game systems. I developed our Morgalad was originally percentile based, but then I found that the bell curve was a little too wonky to kind of manipulate. So I swapped it and redid everything in 4D6. That was about 15 to 20 years ago.
Wow.
And then it just kind of grew from there. And then so the whole negativity of the satanic panic and all of the blight that it caused the community, it actually spurred a lot of creativity in our aspects, because it forced us to find ways to kind of scratch that itch that the hobby had created in our own creative fashion.
I really like to imagine, someone's parent walking in on the game. They're going, "There better be no dungeons in here." And you're like shaking a handful of dice going, no, just fantasy, elves and something. No dragons, no dungeons. Of course not.
The best part was around that same time we started getting the film adaptations of Lord of the Rings. And so exactly what you're talking about is exactly the type of scenarios that we would find ourselves in, where a parent would come in and just be like, "You're not playing Dungeons and Dragons, are you?" Nope.
I really there's something also really charming in a way that that the panic was so focused on D&D to the utter exclusion and ignorance of the many other tabletop games, and games that in this case your own children are creating in front of you, and is going "No, it's not that one that you heard about on the radio." And you're like, "Okay, kids, I'm gonna make you some cookies. Have a great time."
The downside of brand recognition.
Sure. Are some of the people that you played with in those early years, do you still play with them, and or do you still make the games with them? Are they involved in any of the aspects of McNabb Games?
Well, as far as the business side of things, not so much. Many of them prefer to kind of remain anonymous, and
Sure.
I try to respect their wishes. I did kind of ignore them slightly because I felt like being part of the group for this many years, and
Yeah.
even though they haven't gone on to publish their systems, which I encourage them to do, um, I've given them kind of shout outs in our starter book that is for free, because they were the original playtesters for many years, for
Yeah.
well over a decade
Yeah.
before we officially published. My wife is one of them as well. Whenever my first child was born, we were having our regular game night, and she just kind of leaned over. She's like, "Why don't you try publishing this?" And I was like, "Do you really think it's worth it?" And she's like, "You've put enough time into it. Why don't you try?"
Mm-hmm.
And here we are, a decade later.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's one of the best sellers on drive-thru. So I'm quite pleased with it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, and I think that seems like a great way to like get into it and talk about it. So, I from a mechanical perspective, I'm interested a little more in like I think why you started as a percentile system and what ultimately made you realize like this is actually not going to work as I try to expand and scale this up.
Well, the thing with percentile was it was a lot of fun, but most percentile games, as far as role playing, have kind of a difficult mathematical point of entry for newer players and for younger players. And as I developed it more and more, because we moved several locations, we lived in several different states throughout the time that I was developing as a kid, this game system, and trying to explain to brand new gamers how to use a percentile based system is very difficult. And so one of the things that struck me at a very early age was most people that have never played a role-playing game in their life at least have Candyland, Monopoly, or something like that hidden away in their closet. They know what a D6 is. Those are easily accessible. And so that's one of the things that kind of fueled me to try and figure out a way to make it work there. It also opened up a door for us to use the 4D6 as a starting point and a base for the entire system. But if people wanted to develop and manipulate and modify the dice mechanics, they can do so. Even though it starts off as a 4D6 system where you use a 4D6 pool for everything, if somebody wants to spend their character points to change the D6 to D8s, they can do so.
Cool. Okay. So, yeah. Sometimes I have to resist the urge to be like, okay, just explain to me how to play your game because I'm excited about it. And I'm like, that I know that makes for bad audio content. I'm like, okay, the character building and the whole thing seems really interesting. Okay. I had half a thought that I think is probably a quick answer, which is just around in designing it and kind of changing these mechanics here. One of the things that I have noticed about some games, and for me, I'm going to reference specifically the several times I've tried to play Warhammer.
Oh, yeah.
It does not matter if I know the rules as long as someone I'm playing with knows the rules. And you know, in Warhammer, I'm like, I don't know. My friend's trying to teach me to play. He's like, here's the orcs. I'm like, cool. What do I do? And he's like, roll this many 6-sided dice, and then he'll kind of point at them, and be like, okay, those ones hit, those ones don't. Roll them again. Okay, you killed this many of my units. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening, but it's fun. And where I'm going with this is that I think. Did it at all happen kind of during the experimentation with percentile dice, having the thought of, oh, if the players don't know, is there a way that I can just be like, DM, you need to know what's going on, and you need to say, player, roll these 2 die, and you're trying to get above a 73 or what it might be. My impulse is going to be like, it sounds a little more complicated than that being practical.
Yeah, that was another thing is, like you said, making it easier for the GM or the host, as we refer to them in this system, to be able to easily introduce new players. 4D6 is just it works. It feels better.
Yeah.
whenever you start introducing percentile, I mean, statistics, me personally, I love statistics. So the fact that I can get far more specific with percentile than you can with 46 most of the time. Really, I think that's where that initial design element came from.
Yeah.
But 4d6, the fact that it sets kind of a low baseline, and if somebody builds up their character enough to where they can eventually get it up to a percentile set of dice for rolling,
right,
they're perfectly capable. It just takes a lot of character points to make those modifications.
Sure.
But
that's a long campaign with, and someone kind of having that goal set out almost from the beginning, it sounds like.
Because a character that would be rolling a percentile pool versus a 4d6 pool, that's going to be your difference between like 46 is just embarking out, where percentile, that's pretty much going to skew into legendary and mythical level gaming. So the goal is to make it an easily accessible system where it's just 46 versus success or fail. There's a slight penalty for unlearned abilities. There's a couple point bonus if another player chooses to assist. But ultimately, it's meant to be just kind of a cut and paste where whatever theme or adventure you want to run, it can handle it. And starting with 46 gets us to a statistical bell curve that is more similar to most modern day RPGs. So for people that are somewhat moderate in the community, it will statistically feel like mathematically very similar to what they're used to. So the 46, just everything about it just worked out better than trying to hold true to percentile and force everything to go through that kind of net.
Sure. I'm curious, as you mentioned a love of statistics, if math is also a part of your background. And I'm realizing this is something I also haven't necessarily asked other creators on the show, of how much math they're doing trying to make sure the game is balanced, or like adjust which dice pool system you might be using.
I wouldn't say my background is really mathematic based. My degrees are in computer programming, so to a certain degree,
adjacent.
It is adjacent.
There's some math involved.
And when you kind of take a big zoom out and you look at RPGs, most of them can run on you can look at them from a programmer's perspective as every single page, every interaction is just another if-then statement.
Yeah.
And so,
totally.
That kind of helped me kind of frame my mind and wrap my head around making sure that all the statistics and the math was correct. And then really just trying to make sure everything was balanced, because there were a lot of RPGs that we played that didn't do well, whether it was mounted combat, covered combat, how, magic systems interact with one another. Because, I mean, if you can have a critical success or a critical fail in combat, why not in magic? Why not in clerical divine aid? Things of that nature.
Sure.
So there was a lot of stuff and a lot of things that we wanted to be able to do in game systems that really weren't easily doable with the game systems of the time. And so that kind of the need of the mechanics we wanted, and opening the doors that the 46 opened up for us, is really kind of where a lot of that came from.
Yeah, totally. I feel like a number of games sort of hand wave some of these questions away, and they're like, it's fine, it's magic, don't worry about it, and so I think it's really cool to notice those shortcomings and want to address it more directly. So I feel like I have a set of questions more about like mechanics and how the thing works, and I also want to know like about kind of the setting and how you have developed the game and its like not like it's monster manual, but like the things, for example, that people will be able to find in the fantasies in the RPG starter book, which is available for free, and we'll provide links to that in the show notes. Yeah, I feel like I want to lean us that direction a little bit of like is there as you've developed this over the last decade, does it have a setting or a world that you have developed alongside it? I think you also said like the system itself can kind of drop you into whatever setting you want,
Oh, yeah.
and it seems very versatile in that way. But yeah, is like have you also kind of been world building alongside game building?
Yeah, there's, some little flavor text and lore and, included in the starter book. The realm is a world called Terra Media. The area that you're going to start off in is a port city called Losloth. Um, Before I really understood what I was doing with this world building, somehow everything about it just kind of plays into modern day, geopolitical situations, which
It's really weird how stuff happening around us can affect our creative output.
Yeah.
No connection whatsoever, I'm sure.
And the fact that I was creating this stuff, well over a decade ago, just either leads to history may not repeat, but it often rhymes, because clearly, there's a lot of this stuff that is going to ring, continuously ring to what's going on in the world around people. But the town of Losloth is a port city that is it's approximately 100 years old. It's been settled. There's turmoil with the local indigenous inhabitants, whether it's dwarves, elves, orcs, or just anybody else, and the villagers of the town. That's kind of hinted at through it, and through the starter adventure there is a small solo play sample. So if somebody wants to kind of get a feel for solo play, they can do that, where you have to help out one of the local captains kind of solve a mystery on one of their ships. But the larger group adventure is themed around discovering lost kind of civilizations that ultimately helps to start a long quest path that is focused on bringing everyone together and creating a coexistent community between the different kingdoms of the realm. And from the starter book, we actually just released our newest adventure module, which is technically the first real one on that adventure path that really kind of gets things started.
Nice.
It's an old one that we've been trying to hammer out and make sure that it's done perfectly before we release. But from the starter book, you can go straight from it into the Song of the Swamp Witch, which is kind of a spooky southern, adventure that also kind of plays with some concepts of charismatic religious, domination of an area. So there's different topics at hand that you can kind of tackle. But at the same time,
that's really cool. I'm curious how solo play works, and I think because in my head, my immediate imagination is like, does it sort of become and in writing it, does it sort of become like a choose your own adventure book? And you're like, okay, you encounter this thing, you're trying to have a social interaction, roll your dice pool. If you succeed, turn to page 3. If you fail, turn to page 4. And like, I don't know that I realize it was not articulated as a question, but I'm curious how that was to write and kind of how it works in practice.
Yeah, the solo adventures, as far as writing those are the ones that are truest to me as if then statement. And so everything wound up being nested into, do you succeed? Do you fail? But then it also kind of opened the door of, what does succeed or fail look like? Whenever
I
it
ask
comes
myself
to solo.
this all the time about my career.
And so one thing that it really kind of opened the door, even with the 4D6 system, is because not everybody is going to want to modify their dice pool. Some people are going to enjoy the 4D6 and the way that it feels, and they're going to want to stick with that. And so we created a challenge system, and that challenge system effectively can scale with level. And so you have like your standard ability, your standard difficulty. Let's see. Just for a moment. I had it pulled up. There we go. Challenge. So
Yeah,
under
totally.
the challenges section, you've got easy, standard, hard, difficult, and extraordinary. And for an average player that's just starting out, I think it's levels 1 through 10 or 1 through 20. I'd have to look back through it. But those are, just like a range between 10 and 19, depending. And so that's what your challenge ratings would be. So if you're playing solo, you'd still need your 4 dice. You'd still need your character sheet. And most solo things, as we put them out, are going to be more focused on difficulty category versus a set number. And the reason is because if you want to play a adventure solo, you want to make sure that it's going to be compatible regardless of what character you have. And so we make sure that the challenge categories scale with level. So that way, whenever we use those difficulty categories, that they're consistent across every different character type.
Someone playing a like wizard archetype versus a fighter archetype should still be able to complete the same solo game.
Yeah.
And if you don't have because I'm going to maybe leap slightly ahead of myself and make the assumption / question, like the different archetypes or character classes still will have different like skill specialties. And, if you're like, oh, it's a social interaction solo quest, one character type might have a lot more ability in that arena, but everyone should be able to do it if you're keeping the difficulty as a category rather than a specific number.
And that kind of opens kind of the doors into how customizable things are as well. So the main thing is like, we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to access the stories that we put out. And so by using difficulty categories, if an adventure says for levels 1 through 3, that's kind of a soft recommendation. If you want to go through and look at those difficulty and just use the difficulty category, you can scale that to whatever your level is. So you're not kind of locked out of an adventure storyline just because your character's too high of a level. But at the same time, if you say have a different archetype or a different profession than another player, you can still attempt to do things that they would do. It's just there would be like, let's see. If you don't have that certain ability, then there's like a +5 difficulty that's added to the roll. A wizard might not be proficient at skills of strength, but if they are, or a magi in this case, but if they are, if they're not proficient in it, they can just add that 5-point penalty, and if they can still roll over it, they can pull it off. That's one thing that we've kind of errata, that you can either spend your character points to learn an ability that may be outside of your profession, your preferred character class, as most RPGs would call it. But if you attempt something that you have not learned and you successfully complete those attempts 3 times simultaneously, you automatically gain that ability because you've developed a proficiency in it.
Yeah, I love that. That's really neat. Hello, everyone, and welcome to your mid-roll. It is I, your host, Colin, here to thank you once again for listening. It is so nice and so important, and it feels so good that you are here with us. And also to remind you that if you never want to hear me say that again, if you just are excited about the show, if you love what we're doing, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/therollreport, where also, for as little as a single $1 a month, you can submit questions for our interview guests. Only our friends and supporters on Patreon can submit questions, and only they will get to hear the answers. We've got some really incredible guests coming up as usual, and if you want to hear their answers to your questions, head on over to Patreon. Also, you can follow us on social media. We are at The Roll Report Cast on Instagram and TikTok, and now on Blue Sky. Ooh. Follow us there for announcements about upcoming guests once they have been booked, and then you will find out if you have interesting and amazing and unusual questions for all of them. But thank you so much for listening. That's really all. We are so grateful you're here with us and hope you are enjoying this episode. Back to the show. I think so. But before I leave the kind of the world and the larger thing behind and go like ask more about mechanics, what it sounded like is, uh, hmm, the way I want to phrase this, that you and the team at McNabb Games, as you are developing Morgalad and releasing it, there is going to be a like kind of official or canon world and longer campaign that y'all are creating that will be offered to people, as well as just like, hey, our system is versatile. Make your own world, set it in your own thing. Port your D&D campaign from that homebrew world you spent 25 years building into our system. You're going to have a great time.
Yeah, I
Kind
mean,
of.
we've released conversion manuals so that way everybody can convert all of their favorite systems and stuff into the 4D6 system. So
Cool.
that just kind of takes it to where everything you've invested in up until this point is not, a moot thing. Essentially, this opens the doors for you to take that content and expand upon it and take it even further. We've also released multiple unofficial adventures. We've got Silver Veil of Carnola, the Cult of Ashrokel, which some are geared responses to just certain industry climates. Some are geared towards geopolitical conflicts. Some are just fun. We've got the Eye of Ogre Memnon, and all these unofficial ones are just out there just to kind of entertain people and keep customers happy and make sure that everybody has plenty of fun stuff to play with. But we do have our own private game that we've used to play test for these past 2 decades nearly. And that's where the Song of the Swamp Witch is the first branch on that official kind of storyline. I think there's going to be between 7 and 13 total adventures on this path. And they touch on a lot of stuff. Whether you're into politics and social structures, town building, mass combat rules, and warlike structures, investigation. There are some that may also require some disclaimers a little later on as far as sensitive content, just because I know some of the topics that we cover in the official storyline can sometimes be a little triggering for people who have grown up in it. But I think that's one of the kind of beautiful things is that we go through and we tackle challenge after challenge. And at the end of it all, we see how an entire area can coexist and kind of collaborate together. And I think that that's probably one of the great things about the bittersweet starts of Morgalad, is that these troubles and kind of trials and challenges of life have kind of helped build this system and this adventure path that we've run for nearly 20 years that is going to not only allow us to share with the world how everyone can come together and rise above their differences, and just like with abilities that you might not have. The fact that you can sit down with somebody who has that ability, they can explain it to you, you can try it several times, and all of a sudden you now have access to that. That is how the world works. It's that we sit down and through shared experience, we all grow. And sometimes far beyond what the limits of our surroundings would allow us. We do have the Song of the Swamp Witch is start of an official storyline. And I'm very excited and just very happy to finally have it rolling out.
I mean, especially after I'm imagining also then that sounds like the first version of that was 20 years ago. Or close to it. And to have been able to play it successfully and test it and write it and refine it, and now it's sending baby off to college and seeing how the bright shiny world treats them. That's really cool. To kind of like dive back towards mechanics, based on a couple things you've said, I think I want to just ask, is there a character level cap?
No.
Because it seems like way past 20 is going to be totally possible. And it also sort of seems like they are less markers of progress in kind of the way that D&D does in terms of your story arc, and more acknowledgments that your character is gaining experience and perhaps learning these new skills from other people in the party or from people around you?
Yeah, so there's no set level cap. We're releasing errata continuously, and that is where you get like these scaling challenge ratings and everything of that nature, because as new levels are unlocked, we're going to have to release more and more content. And the goal was, I got really frustrated seeing, I would invest heavily in something. I would really become a fan of a storyline, and then 5 or 6 years later, a new edition would come out and we'd have to start that storyline all over again. So that was something that did not really sit well with me. So I wanted to make sure that we had one kind of concrete kind of foundation for us to build upon. Now, we have released the revised edition, which is currently a living document, core rulebook that is a little bit more expanded upon, and it's more clarified because some of our font choices in the original one were a little more on the artistic side. But we're trying to make sure that everything has a more accessible version nowadays as well. So we're trying to pay respect to the promise that we're not releasing new editions while simultaneously making things accessible for people. So we don't have, in terms of a hard level cap, we don't really have that. And as far as milestoning, everything is experience based, but it's not. One big flaw in most systems is that the main way to get experience is combat. And one of the running jokes that you hear Brandon Lee Mulligan say all the time is, level 1 wizards, today's lesson, slaughtering goblins, because that's the only way you get experience. The challenges that you go through, whether it's physical interaction, any type of challenge that you roll dice for, you will gain some form of experience for. If you are casting a spell, you're going to get experience for it. It doesn't necessarily have to be combat related. It can be, there's 3 different types of magic. You can try some sort of mental or physical magic on another individual or something around you, and you can gain experience by just practicing that. And you can grow as an individual that way. And you have your locked in professional abilities that are only available to people who are in those professions. Now, once a warrior and a magi meet up, they can start sharing these abilities and teaching one another through that system of where, if you get 3 consecutive successes with that difficulty rating penalty of 5 points, you can learn that ability. So there's really no limits. And the whole point was to make it to where you have a kind of concrete and skeletal framework when you begin. But once you start as a group playing with other people, there are no limits and everything becomes open. You can wind up being a warrior that is proficient at, combat magic and never multi-class. Now you can still multi-class if you want to just open that. If you don't have access to someone to teach you, you can multi-class and gain access to that ability tree.
I lost your audio for just a moment there.
Test 1, 2.
Oh God. This is horrible. I have something is ringing in. I see. Okay. Someone was trying to call me. And somehow my Spotify started at the same time. So that was 4 different things in my ears at the same time. But I think I got you back.
Yeah, I think so. Can you hear me?
Yes, there we go. Okay, yes, I can. All right. Jesus. When I say don't disturb phone and computer, I would like you to not disturb me, but it's fine. Anyway, multi-class. I think that was one of the last things that I heard, is that multi-classing, if you want to gain like a specific sort of a piece of the skill tree, if you're a warrior and you want some magi skills.
You can multi-class if you want to. And that will unlock those ability trees of each of those classes for you if you don't interact with another player who already has access to those ability trees. But one of the things that I really enjoyed, and we enjoyed through playtesting, was we had a warrior, a magi, a rogue, and then clerics were interacted with on occasion. fairly rarely. But through their interactions with NPCs, such as clerics, some of them would start trying to mimic the cleric's healing abilities. And so while they weren't able to get access to the full tree, they were able to kind of replicate what they were doing successfully enough to learn some basic healing magic that they could carry with them on the adventure. And that's one of the things that I didn't really like about these kind of rigid archetypes that were in existence. If you see something and you can replicate it, there's some of us that just kind of have that kind of savant nature like that.
Yes, totally. And it, like, that specific example to me is really interesting because most games you talk about a cleric or cleric equivalent, their magic comes through faith.
Yeah.
It is bestowed upon them by a deity of whatever nature, and that's where that comes from. And so my mind immediately goes like, oh, that's so cool. What could I, as a player, do? What is my narrative justification for I, random warrior from abroad, have met this cleric of this deity, and I think that healing would be really useful, and I try. But how do I narratively justify, does that come from faith? Do I just like understand something about the body based on this? I don't have an answer to any of that. I just think that's really interesting and presents some cool challenges and problems for a player and for the host to sort of massage those bits together. Assuming that's your play style. If it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. But to me, I think that's like a really interesting little character beat as well.
Yeah, and it kind of also opens up the door for how religion is spread naturally. So like if, we all know correlation and causation are not the same thing, but totally. Like a fictional Iron Age mindset that shows up and it's like, wow, this person said a few words, called out a couple names and did a small ritual, and now this person is back up and running again. If they start replicating that, they're inadvertently kind of spreading that cleric's religion for them throughout the area, so it helps narratively as well.
Totally. It's like little seeds of faith being planted that might only grow to the extent that you believe in the healing, but might grow larger if you're like interested in a character arc of faith. In this game, the magic and the divine aid do somewhat come from separate yet intertwined sources, and that's kind of why the schools are slightly different. But spellcasting, whether it's magic or divine aid, falls under three categories. It's either corporeal, physical, or mental. And that's just those three categories give you the focus of what is your target going to be. Are you going against someone's fortitude, their reflex, or their willpower? People that have never encountered a magic user still may have a natural affinity to kind of fend one off if need be. Right. Sure. So mentioning those kind of, I guess, targets for magic, leads me to want to know like how you have named stats for characters. There was fortitude and reflex, I think I picked up, which just how does the construction of a character sort of work in that way? What skills and attributes are you deciding in creation?
So there's attributes and abilities. And so the attributes is much like, most RPGs, you've got your 6 main attributes. You've got power, finesse, essence, knowledge, consciousness, and allure. Everything outside of attributes is considered an ability. You have standard abilities that are available to all class or all professions, and then you have profession-specific abilities. Just to get everyone started, everybody starts off with what we call the base 8 abilities. You've got your traditional spot, search, listen, stealth, diplomacy, fortitude, reflex, and will. So just traditional, regular things that you would pick up on. And so through character points, I think you'll get 1d6 of character points whenever you're going through character creation, and you can spend those to get either more standard abilities or you can spend them on profession specific abilities. And then,
or at a certain point upping the size of your dice.
oh
in
yeah,
the dice pool.
that's one of the standard ability and upgrade sections, is that you can increase the dice type. So it's on a linear scale. So D6, the next, if you spent character points to change that die roll for that particular attribute, then that attribute would use, instead of D6s, it'd be D8s. And then from D8s to D10s, D10,
Gotcha.
D12, D12, D20.
And so each attribute you would have to spend points to increase the size of the dice if you want to.
Yeah, and so,
like each. Gotcha.
And so spending character points to increase an attribute would cost more, because each one of those attributes affects a category of abilities. And so if you want to just do one specific ability and just be insanely proficient with that, you can. But if you want to increase an entire attribute tree that affects a whole litany of abilities, you can go that route too. It's entirely up to how detailed a player wants to be.
Yeah. I appreciate a lot kind of the way you're talking about it. It feels the customizability. One of those words is probably the one I want. Feels like it's what people tell me when they try to get me to play Pathfinder, that like you can kind of get pretty granular if you want to and really make the character that you imagine in your head with the skills that you think they're good at, and you have multiple pathways of getting to that exact thing.
Yeah, and that's like it really my favorite way to play, and that's probably what helped shape it. Of course, since I'm the one that created it, is I like to think that every person is going to have an origin, and from that origin, you're going to be exposed to things that you wouldn't normally see. Just if you went through life and just stayed sedentary. And through that exposure, you're able to learn more about the world, as well as things that you weren't aware that you were even capable of. And I think that leads credence to a lot of the customizability. That'll be our our term.
Yeah, into it.
And so, while your traditional experience points do play into, you being able to get your character points to spend in that fashion, there are different ways to go around customizing your character. You don't have to just go out and slaughter 300 kobolds before you can start casting spells or learn how to fight efficiently. You can sit at home and you can just train that same ability over and over again, gain experience that way. And there's this old saying, I'm not worried about the man who's practiced 200 punches once. I'm worried about the man who has practiced one punch 200 times. And so that's kind of where that experience mechanic kind of comes from.
Totally. Well, and I think it's, I had this thought earlier, and I'm just saying, like, I really appreciate that, because like we were saying, like, again, D&D as an example, if you choose to go experience points, any combat, there are calculators and there are specific numbers, and you're like, this kobold that I'm about to slaughter is 50 XP, and I know that, and so and those are really detailed. But then there's just kind of some loose guidelines around how to award XP for good role play or good social interactions or like that kind of thing. There's just little thrown away sentences in like the DM's guide, like, oh, I don't, if they do an hour of good role play, give them 1,000 XP or something. And like, there's not that. And I didn't ask if there like if you have also created specific numerical values for like, you were awarded this many character points when you try a skill 3 times, but even just having the rules of like, these are 7 ways you can get these points instead of only go out and kill something is a great improvement to that system.
Well, also encouraging interaction is one of the big drivers behind it, because there are set experience points that you can get for defeating or successfully completing a challenge or an interaction with a foe that is going to be in the creature compendium. But also, if you succeed on an attribute challenge, whenever you're using just a base attribute, if you don't have a specific ability, Anytime you succeed on that, you're going to get 25 experience. If you have a specific ability and you use that one, you get 50 for each time that you use that. So that also encourages, whenever it comes to our support players, that encourages them to run out and heal people more, because they also get experience from that. They grow from that. It encourages role play, because people that wouldn't normally try to use diplomacy or allure to kind of persuade another individual might try that now, because there's an experience reward tied to those dice rolls. So yeah, having multiple ways around it encourages, in my opinion, more story-driven role play. Now, you can still run it as just by the numbers, and you can just be as chunky and crunchy and combat heavy as you want. And you could completely ignore the attribute and ability rewards. But, I think that you just get a more enriching storyline whenever you incorporate those.
Yeah, totally. Oh, well, I'm so excited. So, where can people find this awesome game? Because obviously everyone will want to, and we'll find the show notes. But what is the future? What are we hoping for? And where can people find it?
So we have our Song of the Swamp, which was our most recent Kickstarter kind of crowdfund. All of the official storyline has been written. It is complete. We are gradually releasing them, ideally about one a quarter, just so that way people have an opportunity to kind of get early access to them. And people from those crowdfunding platforms can also kind of give their voice of, maybe there's a format or a platform that we haven't made these stories available yet. And, we can kind of help to bridge that gap. But one of the big hurdles is that I am doing the artwork myself for most of this stuff. And this year I finally got a nice new monitor that it's touchscreen, so I'm super in love with it. And that has lent a huge amount of help to me getting the artwork where I wanted it for us to finally start our official storyline with it. But that being said, we do have, crowdfunding planned every quarter for probably the next 4 years. Our next storyline is
nice to be looking that far ahead, though. That is foresight. I appreciate that.
Our next official module is going to be the Ice Halls of Terranfall, where it's going to be kind of a murder mystery gone wrong. But we've got Morgalad.com, where everybody can find the core rule books as well as the physical books, the free downloads of our starter book. And for anybody who's wanting to start up and do their own kind of content or convert their own content over to Morgalad, we also have our 46 system open license there as well. So people can gain access to that. There are no royalties. There's no hidden fees. It's 100%, owned by you. There's a few stipulations just to make sure that content isn't too problematic, because we have had
reasonable.
Yeah, we have reasonable use expectations, just because there's some topics that, even though we understand that we may tackle some questionable situations that could make people feel a little uncomfortable, there are still lines and limits of what we are willing to blatantly just throw out in front of people. But other than that,
it's going to have your name on it or your imprint, and that seems totally reasonable given many things in the state of the world today.
Yeah, and the big thing with us doing the system open license is we wanted to include people in an official capacity to be able to kind of release their stuff under that umbrella. But we also wanted to give people a perpetual license. So that way, while other publishing companies might try and renegotiate or, pull back on things as time goes on, if somebody puts in the time to support our system and puts in the effort to convert their stuff over to the 46 system using our conversion manuals, we want them to benefit from it. We want them to enjoy it fully, and we don't want to limit them, outside of realistic expectations. But all of that is on our website at morgalad.com. We also have stuff over on Drive-Thru RPG. We are also converting all of our adventures and systems and character sheets onto Roll20. So those are rolling out now. And we just, I can probably share.
Really integrating with all of the things. That's so cool.
I can also kind of share this if the system will let me, because this is something that is technically in the works and we haven't officially launched yet. But we're also doing
sneak peeks.
We're also doing physical accessories. We have adventure journals that are already available. We have Dungeon and Dice Crypt cards, which are it's a 52 card playing, standard playing deck, but it has a randomized geometric dice set on it, and it has map geomorphs, so you can just shuffle cards and then build a map out of it. But then we also
that is so cool.
We're also working with Drive-Thru RPG. In the very, very near future, probably before this podcast airs, this link here will be live, and people will be able to order through Drive-Thru physical dry erase battle mats. And we have 3 designs. There's standard parchment or sand, water or stone. It's kind of a blue-gray. And then we also have the forest or grassland battle mats too.
This is so cool. I love those dry erase mats. They have totally changed my DMing and my life.
And these are made from a very thick polyvinyl blend. A lot of the industry standard ones, I bought them, but they would start ghosting after a little while. And if I tried to use any really strong soap, it would start to lift the paints or lift the inks off of them. These, you can hit them with Dawn dish soap and then take them outside and hit them with a water hose. So these can stand a little bit of abuse. So these should be rolling out fairly soon. So yeah, Drive-Thru RPG, Roll20, and Morgalad.com. Morgalad, if you order direct through us, you'll get your physical goods and your PDFs unlocked automatically. Same with Drive-Thru. The Drive-Thru marketplace is also going to unlock. We have an integration with Roll20, so you can even unlock those digital goods through Roll20 and Drive-Thru simultaneously as well, if you want to go that route.
Planning all the things, doing all the stuff, putting it all together. That is so cool. John, I am so excited for this. I would feel like I would be remiss in not asking you if there are other things or other games that you are also working on that you're excited about, but outside of the Morgalad system.
Well, so technically every adventure that we release is also converted for compatibility with Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder.
Okay.
So even our official storyline will exist outside of our own kind of realm. Because we don't want to be an island unto ourselves completely. We want to try and meet players where they are and make things as easy as possible. That's been the driving motivation behind everything that we've done. But my kids are coming of age, and I think once this official storyline is kind of done, I should have. They've begun developing their own system that is based off of this. And it's
nourishing this next generation of designers. I love that.
It is a lot more child friendly, but at the same time, it's there's creative elements that my mind was not expecting, and so I think they're gonna even show me up. So
amazing. Well, then I think on that note, it may be time for the most important question that I can possibly ask you, and one of our final ones, which is, what is your favorite character class and subclass? Although I usually ask people about D&D, but I feel like I kind of want to know what your favorite archetype within Morgalad might be instead.
So, my favorite archetype, I think, is I think it's the unburdening. It's the unburdened is kind of the best descriptor I can give for some of these characters. We have had clerics who have kind of come in from kind of rough backgrounds, but they believe that there is something out there, even though it doesn't make sense to them. And they encounter time and time again in some of these storylines and the official lines. Song of the Swamp Witch is going to be one of them. They encounter clerics who may be somewhat taking advantage of the local inhabitants for their own well-being, for their own benefit. And so some of these clerics start to see the other clerics in society are doing all these terrible things, and they have to kind of struggle with the issue there, and still take solace in their faith. And there's this old quote that faith can be reinforced through reason, and so they have to keep true to their faith while simultaneously sometimes stopping those who may be abusing it. We also have a warrior who kind of falls under that unburdened moniker, who started off as just a traditional fighter, but over time went more of a diplomatic route. Someone who starts off as a leader on the battlefield can become a leader in politics whenever they have the courage to stand up and say that, everybody deserves a voice equally. So these characters that may start off in really bad backgrounds, really tough, dangerous environments, but ultimately grow and carry on throughout the game system to become these kind of beacons for hope and light and for equality. I think those are my favorite archetypes. That's
awesome. We need more of those in fantasy and in the real world,
yes.
Let us say. Well, John, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited to, get to try this system myself. That's my next step today, is trying to make sure that I have a copy and can bring it to my game. We will, all the show notes, all of the links and things will be in our show notes. So, listeners of the future, go check out Morgalad and all the other cool things that John has been doing, because why would you not?
And if the starter book might be a little bit too much to take on reading, just to start off, on Roll20, the Retrieving Brother Hannibal is the starter adventure, and it is for, I believe, I think the minimum on Roll20 Marketplace is $4.99. However, you buy it through drive-through, it is free on drive-through RPG. Ooh, and so you can unlock it through Roll20 if you download it through there.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Listeners, if you like what we're doing, you can follow the show on our social media that we may or may not check very often at The Roll Report Cast. And if you really love what we're doing, you can find us at patreon.com/The Roll Report to offer us a little bit of money, even as little as $1 a month. Because many of us can hopefully spare $1 a month for what we like to believe is good quality programming. On that note, John, thank you again so much. Such a pleasure to talk to you, and I can't wait to see all the new adventures coming out into the world from you and McNabb Games.
Awesome. Looking forward to helping, right. And if we can ever come back again and advertise more fun stuff. So.
What else is the RPG community but mutual advertising for each other's cool stuff?
Absolutely.
Right? All right. And until next time, go roll 4d6s and have a great time, friends.